Are we set streaming? We're set. Okay. All right. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Nana Fosu Nyante, and I'll be your Master of Ceremony today. Welcome to Software Freedom Day 2021. We'll start with a prayer, and to do that will be Ms. Vida Boache from NITA.
Good morning. Please, shall we have a word of prayer? Ancients of days, as old as you are, you remain the same. Heavenly Father, we thank you for a beautiful morning like this. We thank you for bringing all of us here together to deliberate on national issues. Father, your word says that wherever two or more are gathered in your name, you are in our midst. Father, we pray that let your presence be activated in our midst today. Father, we pray, oh Lord, that let everything that we are here to discuss go on a long way in helping with the development of the economy of this nation. These and many other blessings that we ask through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Thank you very much, Vida Boache. Next, we'll have a welcome address by the Director General of the Ghana-India Kofi Annan Center of Excellence in ICT, Dr. Collins Yeboah Afari. Would you want to use, yes, the podium, please? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, MC. And good morning to all of us again. Mr. Chairman, schools' particular needs in the project's community. The Nyansapo OS can also be distributed for free to students and teachers. The same platform can be used at home and in schools. The software will not only reduce licensing costs for schools, but also ensure improved reliability, security, and technical support for government and organizational productivity. It will also foster innovations and bolster a greener, more sustainable approach to computing and STEM education. This year's celebration is made possible through our partnership with the Linux User Group, developer communities, UNICEF, and the DPGA. We are appreciative of this collaboration, and we hope to maintain these worthwhile partnerships for a long time. As different activities take place within the day here and other locations and online, it is my hope that participants from public and private organizations will make the most of it for their benefits. Thank you and enjoy the celebration. You are welcome once again.
Thank you very much, Dr. Collins Yeboah Afari, the DG or the Director General of the Ghana-India Kofi Annan Center of Excellence in ICT. Next, we would still do this and introduce the chairperson for this auspicious occasion. And the chairperson for today graduated from the China-Europe International Business School with an executive master's in 2011. In computer science, he holds a computer science bachelor's degree from Kingston University, London. And he's got over 25 years of experience working in various ministries in the UK and in the US of A. He was a senior administrator, senior systems architect, and CIO, and program director for federal operations for systems incorporated in the USA from 2001 to 2002 and 2003 to 2005 respectively. He also had stints with Thames View Shore Start program in the UK. And he joined Nortel, now Avaya UK, as a project manager for the professional services group at EMEA region from November 2005 to 2006. He was also Senior Vice President and Group Head of IT at Data Bank Financial Services Group. He was also the technical advisor for ICT at the Ministry of Finance. And he personally advised the Minister of Finance on ICT matters of the ministry and MDAs from 2017 to 2019. Then he was also appointed the Acting Director General of NITA, that's the National Information Technology Agency, in January 2020, and had held that position until he was confirmed as a Substantive Director General in October 2020. Ladies and gentlemen, the chairman for this auspicious occasion, the Software Freedom Day 2021, is Mr. Richard Ochre Fosu. A round of applause for him. Thank you very much. So, would you let me do the honors of introducing the rest of the right now? Yes. So just okay. And thank you so much for accepting to chair this, and he's doing this representing the minister. And before he goes ahead, I'd like to introduce to us Mr. Fiacre Makase. He's the UNICEF Deputy Representative. A round of applause. Mr. Fiacre Makase. Thank you so much. UNICEF is supporting this event, and we are really, really grateful. Then, next to him is Mr. Sabra Asante. He's a patron for the Linux User Group Ghana. A round of applause for him. The Linux Group is a developer community of Linux users and Linux creators. They contribute to the Linux group. And they are also co-organizers with the Ghana India Kofi Annan Center of Excellence in ICT. So, Mr. Chair, your audience. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. DG Kofi Annan Center, directors of the Kofi Annan Center, representatives of UNICEF, and the representative of the Linux user group, members of the media, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I am standing in instead of the Honorable Minister for Communications and Digitalization, Honorable Esla Owusu-Ekufo. She was unable to attend this event due to other equally important commitment that she had to fulfill. However, she sends her best regards. This event marks the 16th anniversary of the Software Freedom Celebration in Ghana. And we are proud to host it here today at the Advanced Information Technology Institute at the Kofi Annan Center of Excellence with all of you. I'm pleased to be part of this important interaction and celebrate as a public education effort with the aim of increasing awareness of open source software and its virtues and encouraging its use. The theme, open source for digital sovereignty, is indeed apt, as what government is pursuing to enhance growth and livelihood finds expression in this digital transformation agenda. I would like to express my sincere appreciation to all who generously helped to make this event a success. This event is the culmination of enormous collective effort by the Kofi Annan Center of Excellence, the Linux user group in Ghana, and support from UNICEF and the Digital Public Goods Alliance. Let's acknowledge them for a second. It is evident by now for all to see that Ghana has fully embraced the concept of digital economy. Digitalization has become very important in our day-to-day activities, and nobody can overlook where the world is going in this digital evolution. Indeed, this celebration and the theme, Open Source for Digital Sovereignty, calls for attention and support to enhance the activities of software developer communities to help achieve Ghana's digital agenda. The world is evolving into a more digitally inclined era, where software is dictating the pace of development, and Ghana cannot be left out of this. As regards, government is projecting different initiatives through the Ministry of Communications and Digitalization to move Ghana along this digital transformation through a well-thought digital strategy blueprint. Prominent in this will be software development and digital skills, artificial intelligence, robotics, and the Internet of Things, and many more. The likes of the Ghana card and its integration with other critical systems, such as the Ghana.gov payment platform to help with payment of government online services, mobile money interoperability platform, etc. There are other major digital projects, and we will not stop until our economy is fully digitalized. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, mindful of the rationale for this celebration, Open Source for Digital Sovereignty is key in the 21st century. And for us here in Ghana, we believe that it is highly prudent to control the software we use or what software our device systems or equipment run on, and by extension, control who access our national data, infrastructure systems, as well as technologies in general. This effort by the Kofi Annan Center of Excellence should be commended for the open source development community to churn out experts in coding to develop Ghana-made operating systems and other software based on the open source ecosystem. I mean, the Director General mentioned Yan Support and other ERP systems and other things that they are developing here. And I think it's key that we support the development community. However, critical to the use of open source based software is to secure our systems from cyber espionage, data theft, and many more security related issues. The total cost of ownership for open source software includes possibly zero purchase price, potentially no need to account for copies in use, reducing administrative overhead. Though there are demerits such as issues related to compatibility, liabilities, warranties, and vulnerabilities to malicious users, the benefits of open source cannot be overlooked. The enormous benefits of open source includes flexibility of use, reliability, and the fact that it is created by skillful and talented people. Open source software further provides flexibility through freedom from not being tied to a single vendor and ability to modify the source code by open source development community. Open source software is evolving, flexible, and encourages local developers to develop software for our use, which reflects a true digital sovereignty. In as much as open source appears to be cheaper, it has its own challenges, and we must, as a matter of urgency, ramp up the conversation of its development and adoption as part of our national digital economy strategy. We might not practically be able to use open source in all aspects of our digital space, but we can identify clearly which place within the ecosystem that open source will make the most impact and deserving of adoption. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, having a well-developed software community could attract policy on open source software uptake as piloted in other MDAs and serve as a motivational factor for the youth who might take programming as their career and the software industry in Ghana as a whole. It would also create jobs for system support engineers from the tertiary institutions and even self-interest developers. Again, collaborating with the Kofi Annan Center of Excellence, which is championing the use of development of open source software, would generate more buy-in and support from the private sector. It would also serve as a challenge for Kofi Annan to build the open source development community to promote Ghana-made software. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, software in general comes with concerns of security and privacy. These concerns are made worse if we do not have control of the development process and they are outside our jurisdiction. We were reminded of this in the Wall Street Journal article on the 6th of July 2018 on the subject, App Traps, How Cheap Smartphones Siphon User Data in Developing Countries. This article indicates that cheap smartphones are sold with preloaded malware named Android Gmobi 1, which cause problems, and we need to all be reminded of such incidents. This is why the open source software development community should help government to build local capacity and control the proliferation of dubious software use in Ghana, and they need to regulate it as much more relevant now than ever as we embark on the digitalization journey. The Ministry of Communications and Digitalization through NITA is collaborating with players in the industry to support and standardize the operations to ensure that the country benefits from their activities. We will support the open source development community to establish and churn out experts in code development to develop Ghana-made software systems. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to a position where we need to deepen the use and application of software, and open source software will be at the forefront. This calls for a well-regulated environment, which NITA is poised to do as the regulator for the ICT sector. We need to have a clear policy around open source and even regulate its usage and adoption within our digital ecosystem. We should, as part of this policy development, look into raising the awareness of open source software and then the developer community, as well as the vulnerabilities that exist thereof. We should be able to develop the open source policy with the developer community as one of the sustainable pillars in our digital economy strategy document. NITA is adopting a collaborative regulations, a G5 standard as per the ITU, to ensure that national regulatory bodies that comes across issues of IT in their regulatory functions consult NITA. This celebration, I must say,
support the Center of Excellence and this pursuit that we have in order to bridge these development gaps through the use of tech, and especially through the use of open source tools. So those are my remarks. I'm sorry, they're a little bit disjointed, but I hope that they make sense. And once more, happy Software Freedom Day. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Fiacre Makase. Thank you so much. The UNICEF Deputy Representative. So next up, we have a few words from Mr. Sabra Asante. Mr. Sabra Asante is a patron for the Linux User Group Ghana. Thank you. A round of applause for him as he comes up.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much, Director General Kofi Annan, Director General Nita, Country Representative UNICEF. You know, they gave us the cash show. Directors of Kofi Annan and others, they've asked me to come and speak. There's so many people I could mention, like Chris, so on, all the staff of Kofi Annan. Okay, the first thing I should say, I didn't expect to be here, but I'm so thankful. We started off by saying, at least I heard, how do you celebrate Software Freedom Day? We are in Ghana in the month of September. Who are we celebrating this month? Hello? So therefore, if we want to celebrate Software Freedom Day, I think we should say, freedom! 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 Yes, I know it's not about political freedom, but we are for software freedom. We must have the freedom to copy. That's why we're not too happy with proprietary software. We must have the freedom to distribute. We must have the freedom to share. We must have the freedom to modify. That is software freedom. I hope you all understand that. That is software freedom. When you take proprietary software, you cannot copy it. My word is that what a lot of us are doing is criminal, because that software says you can only use it. There's no time here to talk about it. You know, if we have the further sessions, we can explain that this is EULA where you can't do much with it and so on. And in fact, when we talk about the fact that in a lot of these cheap devices, as I heard in one of our speeches, you know, they have all sorts of malware. You don't have the source code, so you don't know. But if it is free and open source software, you have access to the source code, so you can tell what that software is doing. I'm sure for too many of us, I'm speaking above our heads. So I think I can just finish by saying, freedom! What should we respond? What should we respond? So just say freedom with me. Freedom! Freedom! Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sabra Asante, patron for the Linux User Group Ghana. Freedom! Right. So next, we have a presentation on free and open source software by the Director for Research and Innovation here at the Ghana India Kofi Annan Center of Excellence in ICT. He's in the person of Mr. Fred Yaboa. A round of applause for him as he comes. And just to remind you, this program, Software Freedom Day 2021, this event is sponsored by the UNICEF Ghana and the Digital Public Goods Alliance. And it's organized by the Kofi Annan Center and the Linux User Group Ghana. And you can join us on Facebook and on YouTube as well, live at Kofi Annan ICT. So without much ado, if you are ready, all right, Mr. Fred Yaboa, take it over.
Thank you, and good morning once again. For the benefit of those who don't know much about free software and open source, as we say it, this is just a short presentation to give you a brief idea of what we are talking about. In the first place, what is software? What is software? Software can be described as the instructions, data, and programs that are used to control a hardware or to do a specific task, or it could even be a tool that you use to create other solutions. And so our definition of software touches on these three areas. There is somebody sitting here who would like to have a tool that can be used to improve what he does in human resource management. Somebody is looking for a tool that will help him or her to be efficient in the accounting that he or she does. Somebody is looking for a tool as a journalist to be able to improve the efficiency of producing reports, editing audio, editing video, and so on and so forth. And what we are saying is, for all these works, there are alternatives that are free software. We move on. So what is the free? Is it as free lunch? No. The freedom we talk about here is not of cost, but freedom to have access to tools that you can use to improve your life, improve the work that you do, and to improve humanity as a whole. When we talk of digitalization, without a tool, how can you be part of this new economy? And that is the reason why we are celebrating today. To create the awareness that irrespective of your economic status, if you need a tool to improve your life, an alternative exists called free software. So we talk of the free as in free speech. Just like if you want to talk, nobody restricts you with a license as to how to say, how are you, who are you, where are we going? Do you need license for that? You can say that anytime you want. So there are a group of software that can also be available to you as if you have free speech. But is any free software free? Is any software that is available to you free software? I don't think so. For any software to qualify as free software, there are 4 freedoms. The first freedom is your availability to use at any time without any restrictions. If you are a student, your ability to study, break it up, and see how the person created that software, be able to edit it to suit your need. And that is where sometimes we lack, because if you go to the developed countries, before everybody finish university with computer engineering or computer science, that person has contributed to an open source product. That is his experience. In Ghana, when we ask you, do you have any experience? The answer is a smile. Of course, that job, you are chasing that job with an Indian, you are chasing it with an American, and you are chasing it with somebody from UK. And that UK guy will pull experience from free software, and you don't have. I've been to universities where they teach databases on paper, C programming on paper, Java programming on paper, and in most institutions they still do it today. Meanwhile, that guy in India is not writing programs on A4 sheets, but rather using free and open source tools to practice. And at the Kofi Annan Center, you can't work here without machine test. When you come, we ask you, database, yes, I'm good. Okay, sit behind the machine, proof. And now everybody is copying us. And so when you go out there to look for an IT job, be careful. Now you need to know the practicals, but open source can give you that leverage. Okay. So freewares are not free software, and I want to make this distinction. People are using products like Skype. It's a freeware. but it doesn't qualify to be free software because it doesn't follow all the 4 freedoms. Yes, if you want to download, you get it. Use it. If you want to study, it's impossible because the source code is not available. There are tools like that, okay? VM, web player, and so on. They are all freeware. So when we are defining open source, we have to be clear. If you don't have the 4 freedoms, it doesn't qualify. And just like all the speakers have mentioned, NOS, Nyansapo, it qualifies all the 4 freedoms. So you are free to look into it, change it, share, create even a new version of it. We are happy because it helps you to improve yourself and also help humanity. And one thing that is a distinction with respect to free software is the license that is put on it. There are different kinds of licenses, but GPL, which is General Public License. So if I create something with you and we want to license it as free software so that nobody will pick it and own it, we will put this license on it. So as soon as you see any of these licenses on any software, it qualifies for the 4 freedoms, so you are free to use it at any time without any fear. So just to show you some of the popular free and open source software here, okay? And obviously, Edunos, or the NOS operating system, is also an example of free and open source. And for those of you who want to try your hands on, you can get your copy at www.nos.com.gh. When you go there, you can download your copy. Anyone who needs a copy here, you will be supplied with one on USB so that you can also share. Thank you for your attention.
Right. So, anybody with any question for Fred before he goes? All right, because he talked about a lot of things. Okay. All right. Mr. Stephen Baffo is the Director, Finance and Administration here at the Kofi Annan Center. He has a few words to say. He keeps all the treasure.
Thank you very much, Nana, the MC. Mr. Chair, I would like to once again emphasize the fact that Fred and his team are doing very wonderfully well. And coming here today to hear about software freedom and what it means for us as a country that wants to digitalize our economy, I think that we need, as a people, as a country, to build institutions like the Kofi Annan so that we take center stage in this process. And for me, I think the issue about prioritizing what we do and giving the support is very, very important. And Mr. Chairman, I want to bring this to your attention so that as we move around and talk about what we want to do as a people, we look at what we can do for ourselves, with our people, with the institutions that we have, and how we empower them to take center stage in our digitalization process. Having said that, I have one question for Fred. He mentioned 4 freedoms. I would want him to, once again, highlight those 4 freedoms and what it means so that I can make another comment. Thank you very much. So the 4 freedoms one by one, and then.
Thank you very much, Mr. Baffo.
So the first one is freedom to use. Second is freedom to study. The instructions the instructor, the developer wrote to make that software behave how it behaves. Third freedom is to modify. You can change it to suit your need. And the last freedom is to redistribute, share with others. Use, study, modify, and redistribute. Thank you.
Mr. Bravo still has a question. All right.
Thank you very much. In the USMR, use, study, modify, redistribute, you were relating your freedom to free lunch. And I want to be assured that adopting free and open source does not come with the costs that are associated with proprietary material. But again, it is said that there's no free lunch anywhere. So what is in the detail about the freedom to use? What cost must I price my mind to if I want to adopt free and open source softwares? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So unlike the proprietary module where you need to buy the software, in the case of free and open source, you pay for the service and not the software. So you come to me and say, modify the Nyansapo so that it can do this specific thing for me. And I just do an assessment, and it will cost me like 10 hours to do what you are asking for. I pay for your time for the 10 hours, and then you do the modification for me, and that modification you've done that you've given me, I have it now. If I want another person to also do some modification in some 10 years to come, I don't need to come to Fred again. Once I have my source, I can go to Kwame. If Kwame has the know-how to be able to, again, modify it to suit my need, I can always be moving. So by open source, where you make the money is the service provision, not the cost of the product. Okay. I think, thank you.
Thank you.
There is
Yes.
I hope it's not for me.
No, yeah, fire. Anybody?
Thank you.
Tell us your name and where you're coming from.
My name is Clement Kui. I'm with the Ministry of Energy. I'm Clement Kui. Yeah, I'm representing the Ministry of Energy. Yes, please. So my question is a follow-up to Director's question. Considering the hidden costs as you have described, which is for services that the IT support team will render on the open source software, I believe this program or programs like these are here to expose us to the endless opportunities that come with using open source software. So when I go back to my office and I speak about it, now getting managerial buy-in for something like this that is going to come at a cost when we don't know what the software can do, or we already have softwares that are quite doing what we want them to do, is Kofi Annan IT Center ready to give us some kind of support, IT support. Maybe I sell an idea that we can use this open source software to run our inventory. We can use this open source software to do all of these activities in the ministry that other proprietary softwares are doing. We will need a dedicated unit specialized in those areas to build those systems and run them and operate them. And the cost you are talking about, I don't know, if you are chartering on certain grounds like these, would you be open to paying for something when you haven't seen it?
I think I don't get the question clearly.
Let me make it clear, please. So, would Kofi Annan give us personnel if we require to maintain and build operating software or open source softwares in our organizations?
That is what we do.
Okay, thank you.
That is what we do.
At a cost or for free?
Of course, but if you are a government agency, we know how to assist. Okay. The most important thing is you are not going outside to get those support. We have people who are capable. In fact, the Edunos was developed by Ghanaians who are in Bolga today, as I speak. If you want them to modify it today, it's just a call away. And by evening, they have modified and built it again for your need. Okay? So that is what we do. Provision of that technical support is the work of the Ghana India Kofi Annan Center of Excellence in ICT. I hope you answered.
So, Mr. Sabra wants to add a few things to it. Then we'll hear from Mr. Ibrahim Imad, who is online with us. He's from UNICEF, and he's going to talk about the Digital Public Goods Alliance. So, just a few words from Mr. Sabra Asante.
I'm still at a loss about the last two questions that we had. The point is that we are spending a lot of money on software. My organization that I worked with recently spent $1 million US. This is small, by the way, on some ERP when we could have used an open source ERP. So the technology guys at my place were not happy at all. You know, they sort of washed their hands off it. So you've paid for the thing. Then you need support, whether you like it or not. Then the person is coming from out of country to come and support the thing. So that's why I'm not too complicated. You are going to pay a lot of money. The fact that you've got the software doesn't mean you're not paying it again. No. Hello? You've bought it. But still you need to pay to make sure that it can do one or two things. And then after a couple of years, you pay again. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now, next we'll have a Q&A session right or during the discussion panel, which is after this session. So next up we have Mr. Ibrahim Imad. He's the UNICEF DPGA advisor, and he's next up. He's joining us online. So let's welcome him. I think he's already on. All right, Mr. Ibrahim Imad. Malto, are we able to see him from there? Because he's already on. Right. Okay. So now what we'll do, whilst they get that sorted out, is to hear to take further questions. I think Billy, you had something to say. Yes.
Hello, my name is Alphonse. I'm with Access Bank. I wanted to, yes, please. Yeah. I wanted to find out. So, is it possible to take this open softwares after you modify it? Can you now go license it as a proprietary product, or since you took it, it was an open source? Whenever you modify, you are obligated to also keep it as such. That's what I wanted to find out.
Your question again, Saba. Did you hear what? Okay.
Okay. So I'm asking if you take such open softwares and you modify it, can you now go and license it as a proprietary product? Or since you took it from an open market, you are also obligated to make it remain as same after you have modified it?
Thank you very much. This is a terrific question, wonderful question. That's the whole point about licensing under whether GPL, LGPL, or some open source license. Once you get it free, you pass it on free. So I always give the example of the browser. The browser is written by a student called Mark Andreessen, Mosaic, whilst he's at university. Then, he goes, he makes it, in the end he ends up with Mozilla Firefox anyway. But then Microsoft can go and pick that university work, it's an university work, pick it, use it for the Internet Explorer, whatever, and they're not going to pass it on free. Did you hear what I said? Did you hear what I said? So you pick it free, you must pass it on free. Isn't it wonderful? Thank you very much.
Yes. Can you hear me now? Hello?
I can hear
Yes,
you, but
please.
hold on a little while. The technical team is trying to get the video.
You pick it up free, you pass it on free.
Yeah. Okay. My name is Billy. I'm from Metro TV. Okay. So I believe that sometimes the education of letting people know what free and open source software is should go down and make people know that it's just a normal software that people see, as in with Windows and all that. Because when we start off by saying that free and open source software, you can modify it, you can do it, you can do. If I'm just a user, I don't really need to modify it. I just want an interface that looks like maybe Mac or Windows, and just work with it. So I think what we should rather be saying, in terms of the education, what we should do is to desegregate. I mean, we should segregate it. In terms of business, how do we use free and open source software? In terms of education, in terms of the common user, how do we market these things to them? I think that's where we fail in terms of educating people on the use of free and open source software. I did my thesis on the use of free and open source software in the broadcast industry. I was thinking that people don't actually use it in the broadcast industry. But when I got in, I was surprised pleasantly, actually, because majority of broadcast industries in Ghana here, I mean, the media use free and open source software, especially in terms of the server sides. That's where they normally use free and open source software. So we still need to go down in terms of the users when it comes to the common user, because I think we are lacking there. So that's a contribution I just want to make.
Thank you very much, Billy. So Sabra, did you want to say something? Okay, all right.
My name is Rexford Ofeyodru. My concern has to do with regulation. I know there are certain standards, international standards like PCI DSS, when it comes to software that accesses customer card information. I want to know if we are going on the journey of free software. Do you have any standards that maybe if I'm a developer, I can get certification for my version of the free software, so that if I go to an organization, they can know that this software has been certified by this body, and so they can confidently shake hands with me. Because if everybody is free and then you don't know, like you mentioned that there are some certain low-cost phones that have certain malware, and a big organization would like to know that the software I'm acquiring meets certain standards before they shake hands with me. So do you have can you have a body that I can send my software to, and then they certify it, and then I can, with a certificate, I can distribute it and all that.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'll take a crack at that. So your point was regulating the space. So NITA, as the ICT regulator, as mandated by Act 771 and 772, is actually looking at this. We are going to ensure that the ecosystem is well regulated in terms of standards, policies, and all that. So this is something that, and I talked when I delivered the minister's speech, I talked about collaboration. We're in an era of collaborative regulations. So we will work with Kofi Annan Center as a sister agency, and anybody else, the Linux user group. Sooner or later you will have a forum also to discuss all this. But the idea is to talk to stakeholders to ensure that we can craft standards around the open source software and certify it as you rightly said. It's very difficult to certify every product, but if you have the user community and you work together, you can put the standards together to do so. Just before I hand over the mic, the lady who spoke before you, her point was user community doesn't really care about the development or the adding of that. So it's a product, right? It's a product that if you see it and you want to use it, you use it. And then as and when, as my colleague said, if you want some modifications and they do it for you, they add it back. And as we said, because it's open source, you put it back into the software for the community to use. I just think in addition to what she said, and I think this is what this forum seeks to do, we need to educate people more about the use of open source software. In some jurisdictions or in some places, it's frowned upon because they think it's not safe because they haven't paid for it or they haven't paid huge sums for it, right? So it's a matter of educating the people that this software can do what we really want it to do at a cheaper price. And, there's also this, if you look at the journey of open source, there's this notion that proprietary software is better, right? There's that misconception. So it's what we need to dispel, right? And we'll work with Kofi Annan Center to actually do this. And I think for all of you, those of you who are here and present, who have heard what open source does, we need to go and propagate that information to our communities and our workplace and all that. Look for the product, test it. If it suits what you want to do, then go for it. You don't care about perhaps modifying the code. You just want to use it. But somebody cares about modifying the code to do something else. But once they do it, the beauty of open source is that they will bring it back so that the next person who gets it will get that enhanced feature that was just worked on. So that's all I would like to say. Thank you.
I think maybe my response to the gentleman who asked about the license issue, from my understanding and my experience, if you develop your own solution and you pick any component that is registered under GPL and you add it to your solution, and then when you finish you say, okay, I have a new license, it's not done that way. Anytime that maybe your solution has 100 components, if there is one out of the 100 components that is registered GPL, because of that one, you can't restrict people and say this software is mine. It's not done. If you want to own it, don't pick from the community. And then when you finish, you can license it anyhow you want. But anytime there is a license component of GPL in your so-called innovation, because of the GPL, it remains free software. Okay? And that is the only way we can protect the work of the community, so that one person will not one day say that the community work they've done, it now belongs to me. Nobody should touch it. No. So I think for the license issue. But again, what I want to say is, irrespective of whether it is free software, open source, or proprietary, testing is required. It doesn't mean that because you say it's free, nobody No. Even the community will test it. If you have a certifying body like NITA, you have to take it there. So that when they give you the certification, everybody now will believe that although it's free software, it meets the standards. So being free software doesn't mean that you don't need to go for standards. It's important. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much, Mr. Freddie Aboa. We'll have one more comment from Ms. Dorothy Gordon online, then we'll break for a few minutes before the discussion. So if we can have Ms. Dorothy Gordon online.
Can you hear me? Nana Fosu, are you able to hear?
Can you hear us?
I can hear you very clearly. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Can we all hear her?
Can you hear me? Not well, but
we can hear you loud and clear. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for giving me the floor, even though I'm remote at this stage. I want to congratulate the new DG and the entire team and of course the Accra Linux user group for pulling this together. And I wanted to ask the DG of NITA a couple of questions just so I could get clear. Unfortunately, the feed went down at one point, so he may have addressed this question already. But in Ghana, taxpayers are paying tax and we are spending huge amounts of money on software for government. First of all, do we have a clear idea of how much we are spending each year on software for government? Secondly, whether we have a clear policy on when and how we can use open source products. And that goes to within government. And that goes to the question that came from the Ministry of Energy. Because government is the main procurer of goods and services within the country. You are the main agent for development within Ghana. And we see this huge opportunity to speed up our development by using open source. This huge opportunity to grow the Ghanaian IT business community. And we need clarity from government in terms of how they're going to support it. Because if we say, oh, we're waiting for a software company to come to government with a solution, that's not going to be very sustainable. Because you are going to say, okay, we're now going to put you within a procurement process where you'll be competing with big tech, which has worked in how many countries, etc., etc. So we need a policy that will actually support the growth of our companies.
Right.
Which will be adopting open source so that the solutions can be tailored to
Thank you.
environment. And we just want to know more about how far growth of our in that direction. What specifically NITA will be doing. Because I know that at the moment it seems you have adopted a proprietary solution for the whole of government that makes it quite difficult to interface open source solutions with that. Quite difficult to interface. Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Dorothy.
Thank you very much, Dorothy. My very good friend, Dorothy. Dorothy, where are you now? So, Dorothy, thank you for those questions. I think I touched on it a little while ago. In a way, the government agency that was established to do this sort of vacated its responsibility. I am the first to say it, and honesty is the best policy. So 2008, there was an act established that created NITA, and we were charged to regulate. Unfortunately, those days, if you can think of it, everything IT was thrown at NITA. So before long, NITA became steeped in operational activities and sort of neglected the regulatory component. Even on the operational side, lack of government funding and all that sort of stuff also created quite a bad name for NITA as well, because you have the Eastern Corridor Fiber, which gets cuts on a regular basis. Meanwhile, government has fiber assets with Gridco, ECG, VRA, and we have not consolidated those to provide the needed connectivity, which is the fundamental building blocks for all the things we are talking about in the digital journey. So I would like to reassure Dorothy and all of you present here that the Honorable Minister for Communications and Digitalization has told us to go back to our roots, go back to our mandate. So we've started, and we are going to regulate the space and ensure that the right standards, the right policies are put in place to advise government. So one of her questions was, do we know the government spend on software across government? Very difficult to know that, because the animal called government is very much in silos. One agency that, in fact, one of the reasons why even NITA as an operations, NITA operations has not done well is that one agency doesn't want you to know what they are doing. Okay? It's all very siloed. So therefore, it's very difficult to know the total spend, but we are working on it. We are trying to create an inventory of softwares used within the government agencies, and by that, we may be able to put some numbers around that. I think she mentioned tax in particular. I would also want to charge the open source community, and as I said when I read the speech on minister's behalf, that we must collaborate, right? The business of taxes is not a child's play. So therefore, we need to put our minds together and then work together. And I'll be happy to see a group of Ghanaians who would look at opportunities and create something. In fact, that's what the sovereignty part of it, of this theme, all comes in. To come up with a software that we can use in this country. Software standards on open source, we don't have one just at this minute as yet, but we will develop one with the Kofi Annan Center and with the community, because you don't regulate in isolation. You've got to communicate with the stakeholders and ensure all the standards that we've developed so far has gone through rigorous stakeholder engagement. We had a stakeholder fair last year, or workshop last year, where we engaged the community at large, and they've all looked, and we solicited feedback on the standards that we've put out there. So we'll do similar for the open source. It's not new. Open source has been around, but I think, just like the lady said, the user community, we need to educate a bit more. Like everything else, we need to let people know that, look, this option is available. And as long as we've done our requirement analysis and we know that this is what we need for this particular operation or process or whatever, then we can look at the best viable option. But we need to also be mindful that it's not all that is cracked up to be. That we need to be clear on the security aspects of it. All right, to make sure that it is also secure for the work that we need to do. We will work on a policy in terms of adopting the open source software. So that is coming. There's the digital economy policy document that is going to replace the 4AD policy document, and I'm sure as we review it, we can add open source as a matter of importance, and we can also look at that. So Dorothy, the answer is no to your questions, because I won't lie to you, but we will work on it and make sure that we get it done, and we are going to get it done. So again, just so that before I hand over the microphone, it's important to note that NITA will regulate and register ICT companies and ICT personnel. In fact, we started it. So if you go on our website, you see we're about to do a whole awareness process. If you are not registered with NITA as an IT company or as an ICT personnel, it will be difficult for you to participate in government procurement. It's high time that we look at this thing. People can sit in their bedrooms with the Amazons and things and order stuff. It causes problems with gray market. It causes revenue losses, all sorts of things. And we want to be able to ensure that the people that are going to bid for government work are fit for purpose. All right. So if you say we have several cases of government projects that have not been executed properly. So these are some of the things that NITA will do, the new NITA will do. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So we're supposed to have Ibrahim Imad online, but he's off now. But in place, we would have Nathan Fletcher to speak to us on the DPGs, the digital public goods. So Nathan Fletcher, welcome him. There he comes. After this, we'll do a short break, then we'll get into the panel discussions. Nathan Fletcher.
Hi, good morning. Unfortunately, we will not be able to have Ibrahim. However, I will just take the opportunity to say a few words. I'm Nathan Fletcher. I work with UNICEF and the Digital Public Goods Alliance. It's been good that we've been talking about standards and working with the communities to hopefully have standards within the country. This is a great opportunity for the Digital Public Goods Alliance, as Director has mentioned, that they are a digital public good at the first within the country. I'll just take a few words to say what it is. So, in terms of standards, the Digital Public Goods Standard is a set of specifications and guidelines designed to maximize consensus about whether a digital solution conforms to the definition set by the UN Secretary General in the 2020 Roadmap for Digital Cooperation. The DPG standards establishes a baseline for requirements that must be met in order to earn recognition as a digital public good by the Digital Public Goods Alliance. What does this mean? It means that what the DPGA does is we go through open source solutions and products and sort of vet them to say, okay, yes, you are open source, you are doing something good. However, you must conform to a certain number of standards that we go through and vet. Maybe Director can later on give us some of the requirements that his product had to go through. I'm very happy we can work with you as well as the open source communities and the Linux user groups and so many other communities such as the Dev Congress and look through and make sure that these public solutions or these public goods conform to the standards. And it's a great opportunity for anyone building solutions here to send their solution to the DPGA to go through this vetting process to make sure that it becomes a digital public good. Currently, there are a number of them online, and we are open to more nominations, and it will be a great thing to use that standard as a buttress to help with making things much more elevated and official. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nathan Fletcher. And my understanding is that Mr. Fiakra Makase has to leave for another engagement. So thank you. As he leaves the stage, would give him a round of applause. Thank you, UNICEF, for supporting this Software Freedom Day event. Thank you very much. So, Mr. Chair, with your permission, Mr. Makase would like to leave. And next, we'll have the panel discussion, which will be moderated by Mr. Sabra Asante. Mr. Sabra Asante, would you come up so that you introduce the panelists from Togo, Uganda, and Ghana, and Nigeria, right? So,
just to say that our panelists are online. Please don't go away. Our panelists are online, and we are looking at the state of open source in Africa.
And to do that, we have Mr. Brian Signor from Uganda. We also have Seun Odejedi from Nigeria, and Mr. Primus Gwenu from Togo, and our very own Dorothy Gordon from Ghana. So to shed a few perspectives from the rest of Africa on the state of open source and how we can all be part of contributing to open source and its growth. Thank you very much. So the panel, those of us here can join us down here so that we can all be part of the discussion. Thank you, Mr. Makase. So we'll move to the next session. Thank you very much, Mr. Makase. And as we set up, we'd like to remind us all that Software Freedom Day is proudly sponsored by UNICEF and the Digital Public Goods Alliance. It's organized by the Linux Accra User Group and the Kofi Annan Center of Excellence in ICT. We are joined live from Bolgatanga, our centers in Bolgatanga, as well as Sunyani, and also other smaller meetings, sub-SFD meetings, events in Kumasi, Cape Coast, and Tamale. And you can join us on Facebook at Kofi Annan ICT, and also on YouTube at Kofi Annan ICT, all one word. And you can use the hashtags FOSS, F-O-S-S, or SFD 2021, or SFD 21, hashtag SFD 2021. Thank you very much. So, if everybody can hear us, we'll begin the discussions. The format it takes is that they will have a round of introduction, 1 minute, by every panel member. Then later we'll have 5 minutes submissions on the substantive issue of the state of open source in Africa, looking at it from the various country perspectives. And finally, 3 minutes to do follow-up remarks. Then the audience can participate. Then we'll close. The chairman will give his closing remarks and what we have deduced and picked up from the various discussions. Thank you so much. Mr. Saba Asante, take it up.
Okay, so we have the first panel member coming in from Togo. I don't know whether we have the feed. Do we have the feed? Do we have the feed from Togo? So if we have the feed, then we can ask him to speak to us, and we'll all listen to the first presentation. Is Brian there? So Brian can speak to us if he's there. I can't tell who's online at this time, but if he's there, he can speak.
He needs to be unmuted.
Okay, Dorothy is on. Maybe we can have Dorothy. If we can have the audio.
I will speak at the end, but Brian is right here. You should just unmute and speak. I can see him. He's in the Zoom list.
But let's hear you, Dorothy. Let's start with you. 1 minute introduction. What's the problem? Okay. I get it. Sorry about that. Dorothy, you are with us here. But I suppose you can't hear us then. So this is technology, huh? What did she say? Okay. I don't know, Brian has, I'm sure, gotten the message.
Sabra,
Good.
Have you said something to me specifically?
Please go ahead. Okay, he's on.
Mr. Chair, DJ, would you join us down here so that we can have the screen turned so we can all see? Thank you very much. Thank you, Brian Senoga.
Hello? Hello, everyone. My name is Brian Senaga, and I'm glad to be here. Thank you so much to the team at AITI for this invitation. And I'm glad to be sharing about the experience of us in Kampala and Uganda as a whole. Glad to be here.
Yes. Do you want me to speak now? Is that a problem? Have you got my presentation? If you don't have it up on the computer, perhaps you can ask Shehu to speak first. Is that to me or to Shehu? Oh, okay. Yes, I can hear you very clearly, Nana. Now I can hear you. Does the administrator have to unmute him? I said perhaps your administrator has to unmute them so that Olivier says Primus is not connected, but Shane is connected. I can see him. Go ahead. Okay. Can I please share my presentation? Shemu has also just sent a message that he will speak if you will unmute him, but he can't unmute himself. But let me go ahead and just start while you sort those things out. And let me say again how great it is to see all of you here celebrating Software Freedom Day along with the rest of the global community. And I really want to congratulate the new DG at the Kofi Annan Center, as well as the entire team and the Accra Linux user group and all those external partners that have supported this event. For me, free and open source software is absolutely essential if we're going to meet our global development goals. And I'm very happy that the Secretary General in his digital roadmap has also stressed this. And we are seeing that there are a number of institutions around the world, including those working on digital public goods, as well as things like the Open COVID Pledge, that are really, how can I say, they are mining the value of open source in terms of addressing these development problems. And for me, I come to open source really from a political economy point of view. We realize today that our entire economy, even our social life, our politics is run using software, especially if we define it in the larger way. And I liked Sabra's reminder that this is Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah's birthday that is coming up on Tuesday. And if we fought for independence so that we could manage our own future, we could manage our own economies, we cannot give away that control to foreign companies, which would be exploiting our data, taking our money. You know, it is an ironic kind of situation where you're actually paying somebody to control you. And we need to get out of that. So for me, open source is very, very key to us being able to determine what kind of future we want, being able to build up our own businesses. But what is the situation with open source in Africa? And can you show my slides, please? Is that going to be possible, or I have to forget that? Today, anyway, can somebody respond to me? Are you able to show the slides? Yes, please show the slides. I'm waiting for you to show the slides. Or do you want everybody to introduce themselves before we go into the substance of the presentation? Kindly advise. Okay. Yeah.
in Africa. And this is Software Freedom Day 2021. It's organized by the Ghana India Kofi Annan Center of Excellence in ICT and the Linux User Group Ghana, and proudly supported by UNICEF and the Digital Public Goods Alliance. We have an eminent panel for this discussion. From Togo, we have Primus Gwenu, Monsieur Primus Gwenu. And from Nigeria, we have Seun Odejedi. And also from Uganda, we have Brian Sego. And our own, very own Dorothy Gordon from Ghana. All right, so Dorothy's slide is ready. Dorothy, please go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, great. I cannot control the slides, but if you move to the second slide, you'll see that I have a quotation from Kwame Nkrumah there, as well as a quotation from Malcolm X. And even though people look at software as being a very technical thing, I want to remind you, as I just said, that it's really a question of who is going to control our future as Ghanaians, whether we are able to retain those freedoms that we fought for, or we will actually pay people to take away our freedom. So if you could move to the second slide. And today I'm going to talk to you about my current work with the Linux Professional Institute, because I think that one of the most important things that we can do when we are looking at open source is to see that how we can build up skills so that people are able to grow their businesses because they have the right skills, and they're also able to gain employment. Can somebody please move the slides? No? Who is controlling the slideshow, please? Okay, perhaps we should stop until they've sorted out the slideshow, because Shayon says that he has the mic now. So, yeah.
Okay, thanks, Dorothy, and good to see you. Hello, everyone. Good to see some of the names on the list, on the list of participants. Good to see some familiar names, and happy to be here. Thanks for the invite. I think it's always interesting to talk about open source, to talk about force on a day like this, especially the Software Freedom Days. But at the same time, we just want to also see how much progress has it made within the environment that we are in, especially in IT world. How much of people are using force, and of course, I think that we are in a situation right now, especially in Africa, where we have an opportunity to have people even deploy force or embrace force without knowing. I mean, I think we just need to take advantage of that now. I was last year I was trying to we're doing a project in Nigeria, which is trying to establish research education network in a state in Nigeria called the State. And we were just discussing how do we deploy e-learning for the institutions? How do we connect the institutions? And it was, for them, cost was an issue. But it was very easy to just to pitch open source at that point in time, because we had e-learning based solutions that we could use to pitch open source to them. And so for them, it's not about open source per se, it's about does the software or does the platform solve the problem. And thanks to COVID, in that aspect, it was, e-learning became something of easy thing to embrace by the institutions. So most of the institutions now are starting to embrace open source, Moodle to be specific, as an e-learning platform for their teaching, learning, and research. And I just think that going forward, we have to some extent, start taking advantage of the situation in our environment to kind of present solutions. We probably don't even need to target as being free. Perhaps maybe the advert of free that we'll be using has been reducing the value, has been making it look like open source is not of value. But let's just present the solutions. Let's just talk about solutions. After we've talked about solutions and we've deployed the solutions, we can actually hint them that, oh, this is actually rules-based. And then they will know that perhaps people will start to appreciate that, free software actually works and gets the job done.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank you for the opportunity that you granted me to be part of this panel. I look forward to a very good discussion. I don't want to take too much time doing this intro, but I just wanted to raise that for a growing continent, a developing continent like us, the only way, the most feasible way for us to catch up with the developing global community is to embrace open source. We just cannot afford not to. Otherwise, we would be significantly left behind. What we need, the solutions that we can implement, or the solutions that we can do are possible in open source, and we just cannot afford the licenses. If we want to go global. So I just think that discussions like this are happening globally, especially within this continent, are very helpful. And of course, I hope that some of the outcome of these discussions we will be able to put to practice eventually.
Thank you, Seun.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll move to Dorothy to take over. Dorothy, please continue with your presentation. 5 minutes, please.
Okay, good. I wanted to talk to you about the work I'm doing now with the Linux Professional Institute, because a lot of people, when they hear about free software, they think, okay, so I'm going to work for free. They don't even bother to get into it. And what we realized is that globally, is it possible to show my presentation now? Globally, people who have Linux certifications are actually attracting higher salaries. And the LPI gives an opportunity to people to actually get those certifications. But when we see the bulk of that kind of certification happening, we see it happening in Germany, we see it happening in Japan, of course in the US, but in Africa and some countries in Asia as well. But when it comes to Africa, we don't have many training partners and we don't have the numbers of people going for certification. And that is really unfortunate because, as Shane just mentioned, we see that with the rapid digitalization that has come about following the pandemic, there are so many more opportunities for open source in the market. And so we need to see more training partners. We need to see more people getting the certification and realizing that now they can work remotely. We have all kinds of platforms that are recruiting the top developers to work for companies abroad while remaining in Africa. And I really like that because before, when they stole our qualified people, they actually took them away completely. But now you are still based in Africa. You can still give support to your community, even as you are working remotely for people outside. I don't know what has happened to my presentation. I'm speaking without my slides completely. So let me bring up my own slides so that I have a look at what I was going to say. And yeah, I have some maps which were showing, and I have some slides showing the salary levels, etc. And then showing the tracks. And I just want to say that if you want to make lots of money, probably the LPIC too, and I know, Shane, you have been busy looking at those certifications, so you can talk about them. But of course, it's not just a question of the LPI, and LPI is actually even working with some of the companies to see how to do what they call their hiring program so that people can have job placements. And they're also working with academic institutions to see how they can lower the cost of the certification, especially for emerging markets. But there are other kinds of certification. And I particularly want to shout out to women because we need more African women to get these certificates so that they can actually be actively engaged. So when I look, let me end by saying, when I look at, and I'm very sorry you couldn't benefit from my slides, I don't know why, but let me just say that when it comes to the situation in Africa, it's very clear. We lack coherent policy. We have had a few countries which come out with a half-hearted policy, and then what happens is there's pushback from the big tech companies which are determined to make lots of money in Africa, and then you see that the whole thing dies away. So, first of all, since our governments are the main procurers of goods and services within our economies, we need to sort and put pressure to make sure that we get those policies right. Why should it be that Germany, which is, let's say, one of the top industrial countries in the world, has an open source policy and encourages its use, and we in Ghana and in other African countries who can ill afford the cost of these proprietary solutions, we haven't figured it out. Secondly, we need to, our FOSS community needs to actually engage with our small business community and figure out what kind of solutions they need and how they can support them. And that is where an institution like the Kofi Annan Center comes in, because you may have many small FOSS providers to SMEs, and you need somebody or some institution which will be doing the verification, which will make sure that there's a business continuity even if there's a problem. Nobody wants to work with a one man or one woman programming shop, and then something happens and then they can't access their data, etc. And just to close off this part of it, let me just say that it's very important for us to wake up to the fact that as we use the proprietary solutions, we are giving away our data. Yes. And that is dangerous at so many levels. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dorothy. Next, we will have Brian Senoga. If you are on and you can hear us, please give us your submission, 5 minutes of submission on the substantive issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I'm glad to join this conversation. Obviously, together with my friends and colleagues, delighted at the attendance and the invitation. And so I'm privileged to work in the development sector. I spent the last 15 years working in technology development, and it puts me at the front seat in seeing the power of ICTs in the development sector. I am particularly in the health and education sectors. And speaking of digital public goods, my day job is to support the deployment and rollout of e-health software with community health focus, which is a digital public good. And so I'm very familiar with UNICEF and the WHO narrative around digital public goods. And over time, from the days that Sam has described of installing mobile servers and working as a systems admin in Accra and Linux boxes only, moving into the development world, it's very clear, especially for us on the African continent, that software is critical to how technology could provide solutions, can be used to provide solutions in the development world. I work with village health teams. There's people in the rural areas that go door-to-door working with homes and households. And imagine that there's a pathway to place a smartphone in the hands of somebody like that. You then start to look at the power that's behind the tools that drive work like that. The people that Fred started with, the 4 freedoms that we are talking about, the software, are really handy. And I love Dorothy's angle, certification and training. And once you get into this work, then you're going to get deployed into fintech, into education, into agriculture. If you are lucky to execute the mainstream technology work. And so I have a front row seat at the power of free software, open source software being used for humanitarian work. And coming from Uganda, we've had some terrible PR thinking about how we're restricting technology-driven freedoms such as online and taking taxes that obviously shove off the age on your mobile and technology penetration, even amongst young people. The frontier that's left is the advent of free and open source software. It's never been more important for us to have access to tools, to have the freedom to work with tools, to modify them, to recreate them, to redistribute them. And the second hat that I wear is with the Creative Commons community. And with this community, I also get to participate in conversations where people ask the question of licensing. And licensing initially is thought of for creative arts and this work that should ideally have economic value. But when we start going into open hardware, open education resources, open data for governance, we really begin to understand the value of the ethos, not just of freedom, but openness, and how these values are important in how we work, how we govern, how we choose our leaders. In fact, how we go to school, because you can take this debate right down to who owns the photocopies of the content that's been made for educational purposes. And so I have the benefit and the privilege of being a traditional technologist, but I've now been exposed in ways that have challenged my mind to think about technology for development and to think about technology in the manufacturing sector, and to now come to terms with the value. I am out of town, out of Kampala. I'm in the field right now. I'm participating in an activity where we're deploying technology tools for use in the health sector. I see the actual numbers on budgets of the program teams. And when they look at the digital, they're surprised when they see more license fee. And they're saying, you know, we're going to go to 500 people and activate them, and we're not billing any one of them. And they say, yes, you're using a digital public good. You're using a tool that's steeped in the freedoms of open source and free software. And right there is a game-changing number, because there's a line item in somebody's budget that is zero, absolutely zero. But like Dorothy says, to be able to have the community of champions, like myself, like all of you who are on this call, who become the rallying ambassadors for this call, for us to be advocates, to be the people that drive the conversation that creates confidence in program heads, in government leaders, in educational leaders, and they begin to find not just the value, but the workforce that can support the effective, efficient use, access, modification, redistribution of free software, both in the for-profit sector as well as in the development sector. I'm glad that we're having this conversation. I'm glad that we're celebrating this, and I'm happy to continue to share more as we go. Thank you.
If you're on.
Yeah, yes, I can hear you. I mean, thank you again.
Thank you.
I think I've had a couple of minutes earlier on, and I personally would just like to just if the MC or the host would permit, I think we should just move to the discussions. I think a lot has been said already. In the aspect of the importance, especially to the importance of development, embracing open source, and of course the need for appropriate policies to support this, the growth and the deployment of open source. Most of the things that we do, I mean, those who of us who are interested in open source, there are things that we do from interest. I mean, just from interest. While some people take it further to, I mean, people take it further to business, the aspect of policy is still very much lacking in this continent. So I think the more we'll also see things drive towards policy may also be good. Right from my country, for instance, I see training, I see at the national level where capacity building is done with closed source. I mean, which I don't want to mention name of operating systems here, but it would be good to see capacity building done. I mean, from the government side for open source, for instance. So, if we have much more governmental policies to encourage and to support force development, I think that there will be more improvement we'll experience locally and of course continentally at the continental level. So I think I'll just pause here, and then I would really like to hear from the participants what they think about. And mostly, I think this should be more of a discussion, and I wouldn't want to take much time talking, especially because I've been given the opportunity earlier on. Thank you very much.
Our last speaker from Nigeria wants to hear from the audience. I don't know whether anybody has anything for us. Does anybody have anything for us? Somebody. Oh, okay. One of my people at the back.
Thank you very much. My name is Kwesi Wisdom. I'm also a member of the Linux Accra user group. I think when it comes to open source in Africa, and for that matter, Ghana, I think the problem is mostly with the government side. Why do I say that? With government, everything is business as usual. If it doesn't involve money, somebody is not interested. That is the issue. When it comes to the tech side, everything is fine. And you realize that we are doing well at the community level. And then all those resources or resource persons that we produce from the open source community, from the tech side, you realize that in Ghana, for example, all of them migrate and then find their usefulness elsewhere. But then in the country itself, we are not useful to the government. So I think, as the director Nita said, they have to do something about it so that there will be more involvement of the tech community. And also, when it comes to the application side, also the issue is within the government. It's business as usual. I will cite an example with Nita itself. Nita used to use Zimbra, an open source email tool. And then at a point in time, that email was terminated and then it went to Microsoft Outlook. And then this, I don't know if some of you remember, sometimes you could realize that government was having issues with email, especially GRA, and then a lot of revenue was lost. So this is one of the issues. And also, if there is any project that needs to be deployed, we have to make our own people part of the consultants on that project. If only we want sustainability of those projects within the country, we have to make some of our own IT officials part of the consulting. So we don't sit down, you go and bring a consultant from elsewhere. When you finish, the consultant dumps the whole application on us for us to manage. If it is me, I will not be interested because I have not benefited from it. All the money was given out, then you came to dump it, and then you left.
So thank you.
Yes.
So thank you very much for your contribution. At least we've had one contribution from the floor.
So thank you very much again. As a follow-up to the earlier question and subsequent contributions from the other participants, the last speaker spoke about the government side being a challenge. And I want to comment in that regard that one of the things about proprietary software that I think everyone over here will agree with is the fact that it's targeted. When they are coming to you with a product, they are telling you what the product will do for you and some of the problems it's going to solve or the solutions it offers. The issue with open source software is it's open and it's very dynamic. You can change it to do anything you want to do. So I want to recommend in the direction that the last speaker said, that specialists, or should I say professionals in open source, should understand the workings of the government machinery and then propose features, because most of the people who use or work in the government side, like you say, are not looking for dynamism. We are looking at what makes things move. So if you can tell us that instead of going for Zoom or Microsoft Teams, we have developed a solution for you to have your meetings, your video conferencing stuff, you are presenting us with something that we are open to. Right now, Office or the smart workplace infrastructure that has come up is proprietary, right? Am I right, sir? Oh, okay. I thought you people. Nita is not around, but I believe it is, because it's based off the Office 365 infrastructure. Now, all of those things, they sold us features. When you go online, you see that they are telling you that you can do your leave requests, you can process invoices, you can do correspondence management systems. All of them are there, and they told us about those things. You see, now if you were to build an open source software that does all of this, because you understand what the processes in government are about, I think people will be more welcoming to things like these.
So, thank you very much. We want to give one round to, now 2 contributions, one round to the panelists, each of them to just summarize. But let me quickly say that, hello, I've spent 40 years in government. 40. I've retired now. And 40, the Director General of NITA has talked about a new NITA. I was there before NITA came. You know, there was a whole host of institutions which should come along with it. You know, and I'm not sure you're a decision maker. And I've sat at decision-making levels, so I know what makes them take decisions, whether it's because of the features or how beautiful the thing is, or how wonderful Microsoft or whoever is. Are you with me? I tell my developers, I'm told to look and say, never tell your clients, especially in government, that the thing is cheap. Did you hear what I said? Hello, are you people there? I said, I tell my guys, never tell the people in government that the thing is cheap. Sometimes in government, the more expensive, the better. If you understand what's going on. If you don't understand, then you don't understand. So I'm saying I've been there 40 good years, so I know how the thing works. You know, I can tell, for example, when I talk about ERP, Economic Recovery Program, I'm sure some of you have no clue. But I was there when some of those things were happening. Maybe you know the name Dr. Kwesi Bochwe. You know, I sat in those rooms and so on and so forth. But I know you're a different generation, you don't know what's happening. So please, there are more serious issues than these you can manage. But what we want to do now is we want to round up. I have 2 Director Generals sitting here. They've been so patient to go through the whole process. So can we have the various panelists to kind of give us the final and closing remarks on the state of open source in Africa? So first is, I don't know who has the mic out there, whose mic is open, so. Will it be Brian?
Hello?
Okay, Dorothy is there, sorry. Dorothy, we have you. Do you have the mic, Dorothy?
Please allow Brian to speak.
Okay, so they said Brian should come. Brian, please. Brian, can you hear us? Brian? I heard your voice, or I heard a voice.
Okay, I guess I will have to go ahead.
Yes, 1 minute, please, to round up.
Yeah, first of all, I want to make it very clear that security, people who raise issues of security to do with open source software, it is part of the propaganda that comes from proprietary companies that are trying to sell solutions. The software we have adopted in Ghana is perhaps one of the most hacked And so if you want to attract hackers, go for those big proprietary solutions. Of course, not every open source solution is perfect, but the involvement of the community allows for people to address security issues. Now, when it comes to open source and government, part of our problem is we don't have a long-term vision. We have an increased dependency on foreign technology, and that controls our entire economic space, and it's having implications for our political space. Even if we are not yet ready with our own solutions, we should have a long-term vision that prepares us for that. And to one of the people who spoke from the floor, let me tell you that the Brazilian government, for example, has developed a whole range of open source solutions that you can go to the Brazilian government website and look at for your own government. We do not have to reinvent the wheel when it comes to open source solutions. There are many governments around the world that have already deployed in part some kind of open source solution that will be good to use in government. And I just want to say to the DG of NITA, please, let us not forget resilience. Anytime you have a monoculture, you open yourself up to attacks from pests. Right now, we are looking at a monocultural software environment. That means that if a hacker gets in, the whole government goes down. So as part of our continuity, our business continuity, we need to look at other options. We should not go for a single solution across government, but be already building in the redundancy, etc., so that we can have better security. And just let me say, yes, of course, people are being paid to seriously market proprietary solutions. But it is up to our governments to recognize the imperative of taking back control of our digital environment and getting that long-term vision. And that long-term vision has to include open source. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can we give a round of applause? Yes, is it Brian next? Who is next? Sheun? Final words? Okay, great.
Okay, thank you very much. I think it's been a good discussion, and I mean I can't agree more with Dorothy when she actually said that one of the marketing gimmicks used by proprietary is to say open source is not secure. I mean, my background is in systems networking. I'm actually a network engineer by profession. And I can tell you that over 70% of the internet, I mean, the main core internet, I mean, when it comes to servers, I mean, services, are run on open source. So your Google rely on open source. Your Amazon servers you also rely on open source. So most of the significant servers, they actually run open source in the background. So and they've been very secure. I mean open source platforms are the ones that you would keep them running for long without expecting to meet them down the next day as you have in the closed source environment. So I think going forward, we just need to continue to push. And I like the fact that one of the concerns that was raised from the participants when it comes to pitching to government. Let's just stop pitching free. I mean, let's pitch solutions. And but the other aspect is, we government also want to listen and also give some of the solutions that we're pitching in the trial. I mean, that's not what I can answer. I mean, but I hope governments who are in this room would also start giving listening ears, start knowing that you don't need to fly from the US or from Europe to come and before you can actually get attention or get attended to. We need to also support our upcoming, our local initiative based on which are based on open source platform. And of course, free and open does not mean that it's not secure. Free and open just means that it's developed by the community. It makes it much more robust. Experience are shared, and of course, there are services that are also paid. So it's not like free bear. So ultimately, I believe that we need to move from the level of trying to pitch things to level of trying to deploy things, and also deploying, not just deploying based on policies that have been incorporated by various levels of government and institutions. So I'd like to just thank you for the opportunity to be part of this session. And of course, I look forward to many more Software Freedom Day in future. Thanks.
Who are we now missing? Is it Brian? I think it's Brian, the final panelist.
Yes, I'm here.
Good. Can you please sort of give us your concluding remark?
Yeah, so I think sure. I'll wrap on the point that John has made, which is the one of community, just to bring to us encouragement. I think some of the strongest, very unified communities are around the subject of open source and free software. And so I want to encourage everyone in the room to discover what's the community that's closest to you, that's pushing and advocating and supporting a tool or an idea or one of the ethos of free and open that you aspire to, so that you can plug in with them. I think the more of us that we plug with the communities, we create a strong voice, a very strong narrative, and we're able to collectively refine the advocacy language. Like Sean says, it's not free here. We're talking about free in the sense of the license, but we're talking about people who are skilled, who can do this work and can deliver solutions beyond the software. And I think if the more of us connect across the entire continent, we will definitely become a strong voice that is sharpening each other, but also unified in the strategy that we're communicating for the continued advocacy and adoption for free and open source tools. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. A round of applause. I believe this brings us to the end of our It's really fantastic. I don't know whether my host himself will say something before I hand over to the chairman, and therefore we close this particular session. We are done, but since you stayed so long, basically it's just chairman remarks to close us. But so you won't say anything. I won't. Okay, so please, then the chairman remarks and we close.
Oh, okay. All right. So I would like to thank all of you for coming, and I think this has been very educative. Myself, I've learned a lot from some of the discussion points, and I hope that all of you, from what you've gathered here, you're going to help the community build, just as my colleague DG here said, build it for free. We can use it for free, and then we all learn for free also. So that's my bit. I will hand it over to my colleague here to close. Thank you.
So thank you very much. You've hosted us. I don't know what else to say, but thank you, thank you. Director is there. I don't know whether he wants to say anything. So after the chairman's closing remarks, we've closed. I don't know, photographs? Yes, so thank you very much to all of you. The chairman speaks and we are done.
Thank you very, very much. DG, it was a pleasure, and I think we should do this more often. Whilst the discussion was going on, I took some interviews outside, and I think what came out of the interviews was education, education, education. It seems that the open source phenomenon is not well caught up around the country. It is our jobs as regulators and working with our sister agency, Kofi Annan, to continue to highlight and deepen that conversation. We will work with them to put together a standard. We will work with the developer community to solicit your feedback. I work on a very simple premise that you cannot regulate a community or an ecosystem by carrying a stick. You must impart either knowledge, training, education, whatever it is, so that you equip them with the necessary tool set to be able to work. Then the regulation makes sense, all right? So we'll do that. I'd just like to say that government is particularly interested and is working with local fintechs. Most of you here may have heard of the Ghana.gov payment platform. Hitherto, these were 3 companies that were competing, that they came together to develop something for the good of the country. And I believe that it has huge export potential. Now, with Ghana.gov, government can see its money, its revenue at any time T. Hitherto, we were not seeing these things. All right, so I urge all of you here to look at government, and government is not just the president. Government is me and you. Look at things that are not going well, where you feel that you can use software to make a change. Collaborate. We don't do collaboration well in Ghana. Collaborate with each other. That collaboration is what makes open source work. 2, 3, 4, 5 people or many sitting maybe in different parts of the country or the world and working together to come up with something that could be useful to you and I. So let's collaborate and come up with solutions that government can embrace and use. In terms of government long-term policy with open source, we are now working on a digital economy policy. And as I said earlier on, I'm sure myself and DG, when we review the document, we'll make sure that we put in some information in there for the open source community. It's an option. And always I say that when you are buying anything, you must understand what you are looking for. If the open source alternative is what is good for you, why not? And as we build these policies and standards, we would also advise government to use, and currently it's not as if government is not consuming any open source product. That's a fallacy if anybody tells you that government is not in the open source. Kofi Annan has deployed some of their products in some MDAs. Okay? I just think, I remember the first time I met my colleague here, I said to him, well, you have all these good things, and we don't know about them. Okay? So it's a matter of communicating, championing what we have, so that government can also hear, government can test it, and then we can use it. It's not, I agree with my colleague, typically if you go and you say free Free has a negative connotation. Anything free has a negative connotation. You know, as human beings, we do not like free. If you are walking down the street and someone says, "Oh, here's free lunch, free rice and chicken," you think this person is not correct. What poison no they bury me. Well, so I think we need to re-strategize as to how we bring open source to government. Focus on the functionality, focus on what the product is supposed to do, and then let them, like my colleague said, it's the services behind it that you need to enhance and then bring the needed changes. So, in concluding, education, publicity. NITA, we need to do a lot more. Kofi Annan would have to do a lot more so that we can bring the good message to the people of Ghana that there are alternatives. And government is doing its bit to also regulate the ecosystem. So on that note, I thank you all for your time. I've enjoyed it. Usually I rest on Saturdays, but we have a tough week schedule. Saturdays is when I take a little breather, but when the opportunity, the minister said I should come and represent her here, I quickly took up the challenge and I came. I'm happy to see all of you here, that you've taken time out of your Saturdays, because I'm sure most of you work, or you all work. You've taken time to rest and maybe do washing and stuff to be here. But this is the beginning. Let us develop this community. I charge all of us, right, to work together. We don't do that well, and that bothers me. They do it well everywhere else. The Ghana is me or forget it. Let us all come together. Let us develop the community. We will support you, and we'll make it work. Thank you very, very, very much for your time. And I look forward to the next one. And I know DG and I will be collaborating on making sure that we bring this thing to market, and we make a lot more, we sensitize people on these issues. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you very much. All too soon, we've come to the end of the first session. We're going into the session. Hello? Hello? Okay. So this session chair, please do it outside. Yes. Could you join? Yes, please. Let's all join. Yeah, if you can come forward just a little bit. Okay. The photographer, can you arrange them, please? Yes. Yeah, I mean, yeah, some of us can do this. This is cool. Yeah. All right, this is really good. All right, so freedom. Wow, excellent, excellent. Thank you all. Those of us online too, we're taking photos of all of you. Great. Yes, I see you, Saka. I see you, Billy. I see you, Wisdom, Muhammad. Yes, Saka. Thank you so much for being on. Wow, freedom. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. All right. So we're going to go for a break, lunch, but before we do, Chris has something for us. Can you all be seated? Just be seated, just for 5 minutes, please. No, but no, not for the high table. Yes, please, just be seated. Chris, where's Chris? Chris has something for us. No. Chris. Yeah. Nathan. Nathan is here. Okay. All right. So before we go for the break, I think we've got some refreshments out there. Please don't leave. Get something before you go to the breakout rooms. Okay. Nathan and Chris. Yes, they're on now. They have something special for us. It's on the digital public goods. 5 minutes.
Hello? Hi. Okay, this is all very impromptu, but because of the technical difficulties earlier, Ibrahim, who works with the Digital Public Goods Alliance, who are supporting this event, didn't have a chance to actually say what the Alliance is and how it can support the open source community. So I'm gonna just give you a super brief 3-minute overview of what it is. And then Nathan, who also works with the Alliance, and he actually knows technical stuff, which I definitely don't, can enlighten you with some technical details about what the Alliance does. But basically, Digital Public Goods Alliance is an initiative that is 3 years old, and UNICEF is one of the co-founders. And the idea behind the Alliance is what was mentioned here behind this table: education, 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 and publicity and advocacy, advocacy. The Alliance, together, as Fiacra mentioned, aligned with the UNICEF's mission and mandate and thinking, really supports open source and supports open source as part of the narrative of the United Nations system. So this is big. It is the Alliance's task and mission to make sure that the senior management and high-level management of the United Nations, including the Secretary General, understand why open source is important. It's important for the organizations such as United Nations for open source to actually be part of documents so that then governments can discover and develop these digital public goods. So the DPGA developed a standard which, if you abide, if a certain solution goes and ticks off the boxes of the standard, they can be announced as digital public goods. And the Digital Public Goods Alliance works with dozens upon dozens of development partners and is working towards discovering and developing these digital public goods that can support government systems in education, in health, in child protection, etc. And there are some digital public goods already happening, for instance, in Ghana that many people are not even aware of. So for instance, in Ghana there is a system called SWIMS, and it has everything to do with the child protection. But the underlying technology of this is called Primero, and Primero is one of those vetted, registered digital public goods. Anyone working on a solution that is open source can apply to the Digital Public Goods Alliance to become a registered DPG. Once you become a registered and vetted digital public goods, which is a good exercise in itself, because if you want to become a registered DPG, you have to tick off all of these boxes of documentation, of privacy, security, etc., etc. That gives a green light to everyone who works in the UN system, everyone who signed up to the DPGA mandate. This gives a sign to everyone, okay, this solution is vetted. We can now streamline it and fast track it and try and sell it and propose it to governments all over the world. And so this event is a really first step for DPGA to make its mark. I'm pretty sure that if I asked anyone in the room, were you aware of a Digital Public Goods Alliance before this event? Can you raise your hand? Who was aware of the DPGA? Right? Well, that's very sad, especially for the Digital Public Goods Alliance. And so this is one of the many steps that the Alliance will take to make themselves known. And after this event, we will be sharing materials, because there is a website, there is a standard that you can check out. There is a registry where there is 600 nominees from the entire world to become a DPG. And there are, I think, 60 vetted DPGs now. You can go there. If you work in education, in health, or in child protection, or in any other area, you can go there and you can check out these solutions. And you can maybe use them for your own good, right? So the final words from my end is that, again, anyone can go and apply to become a DPG. And UNICEF here is doing that in two ways. One, we work with the Institute. We're looking for these government-related systems and platforms that can be discovered and as a DPGs and can be registered as DPGs, but we also work with the startup ecosystem, as Fiacre mentioned in his opening remarks. Startups that want to become open source, we support them, we connect them to the DPGA, and then we make our network of partners available to them, of development partners. So that's the general overview of the DPGA, a little bit impromptu, so not perfect, but we want you to be aware of it, and we're going to be sharing materials after this event with everyone who's been registered to the Software Freedom Day celebration. And I just want to give Nathan the mic to speak a little bit more about what it takes to become a DPG actually. What do you have to do when you go on the DPGA page and click Submit my solution to become a DPG?
Sure thing. Hi, So this is going to be just a tiny bit technical, but the first step to become a DPG is to go to the Digital Public Goods website, which is digitalpublicgoods.net/register or /eligibility. The eligibility form will come up and it will ask you a number of questions about the solutions you have. And at the end of that form, it will tell you if you are ready to be a DPG or there are a few things left to be a DPG. How does this work? Normally, open source software is hosted on Git. Git is or GitHub or GitLab is where open source software is mostly hosted. What we do is that we will, within the form, you give us a link to where all the open source software is. We go through it. After you've answered all the questions, the link comes to us. We go through it. We make sure and we talk with you as the developers to say, okay, are you protecting people's identities with your app? Are you conforming to standards? And which license or which open source license are you under? All these questions, we work with you back and forth, and after that, they will check all the boxes, or if there are some boxes that are not checked, we just let you know that, okay, you need to work with more open source tools, or you need to select a better license or not. We just work with you for that, and at the end of that whole process, you become a digital public good with the seal of approval. And then Ibrahim, who you'll be introduced to at the end of that process, will go through with you, and as Chris said, start introducing you to your product to governmental bodies.
Yeah, so the last thing, let's say that you work on a health-related solution and you become a DPG. By the way, there are currently 2 DPGs from Ghana that are fully registered and vetted as DPGs. One is the EduNos platform, and the other one is a solution related to virtual reality and building solutions based on virtual reality. But once you become a DPG, then so now what? I'm a DPG. The DPGA works with various communities of practice. So again, if you, for instance, work in health-related area, this community of practice that DPGA talks to all the time has all the major players, including the ministries, the foundations, the Gates Foundation, etc., etc. And in each community of practice has around between 35 and 50 of such actors. Once the DPG is registered, this DPG is being presented to this community of practice. And this community of practice is then dispersing this information among their program officers, among the governments and agencies. So the DPGA is really the facilitator between the challenges that we have and the offering that open source can bring. And I think Nana is looking at me that this is enough. So hopefully that helps. And we will be sharing much more about the DPG Alliance after the event.
Great. Thank you so much, Chris Shimshak and Nathan Fletcher. Wow. Thank you so much. So we're going to have a short break. We'll have some refreshments outside. Then we'll get into the training sessions. There's a lot to learn today. You can't miss it. So please make sure that you get something before you leave. But don't leave yet. We have training, workshops, presentations. It's going to be wonderful. Thank you. Please, the lunch or the refreshments will be that way at the cafeteria to your left after the door. You get out of the door. And the breakout sessions will be in the labs on the corridor to your right and to your left. We would have more question and answer sessions, more training. So please grab something and move into any of the rooms. Don't forget to tweet and share information here on social media using the hashtag SFD2021 or SFD21 or FOSS, and our handles are Kofi Annan ICT, UNICEF Ghana, DPGA, any of them, Linux or LOG, LAUGG.